Like always, appreciate everybody being here and coming out and covering Penn State football and supporting us. Very appreciative of that. Kind of run through some points and then get to questions. But number one, I want to congratulate Kale and Penn State Wrestling. It's awesome. It's just awesome to be around so many successful coaches that are finding ways to compete and win at the highest level. It's something special to watch. Penn State men's basketball, that was a huge win that they had, over Notre Dame. I guess they're playing Marquette on Tuesday, so that'll be awesome. So I'm really happy for Pat and their staff doing a great job. And then men's hockey and Coach Godowski, back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, take on Denver on Saturday. So really cool to see so many. And here at Penn State with 31 sports, I could name a bunch, obviously, but happy for those guys. One of the things I wanted to hit on real quick is I think a huge addition for us that we haven't had in our program is really a true nutrition plan. And we've been able to hire Kayla Matronic. Did I say her name right? Matronic? Yeah, it bounces around your mouth. Sorry, Kayla. But Kayla's a former Penn State athlete, ran track here. I've been running Notre Dame and Louisville's nutrition programs, and we were able to bring her back home and for our whole athletic department. But obviously, I'm talking specific to Penn State football. And I think that's been a real huge area for us moving forward. Trying to maximize this as much as we possibly can and give our guys the best chances to be successful. And nutrition is a huge part of that. Real quick, kind of hit on some of the mid-semester guys. They're doing a great job. Probably a lot further ahead than what I anticipated them to be. Stronger, more aggressive, more competitive than I anticipated, more mature than I anticipated. Just a few examples. Zach Kuntz came in at 10.4% body fat and is now at 9% body fat. Micah Parsons at 9.5% body fat and stayed at 9.5%. Nick Tarburton at 18.7% body fat, now is at 14.2%. Lucetta, 18.3% body fat, now is at 14.9%. Isaiah Humphreys at 15.9% body fat, now is at 13.4%. And Trent Gordon at 13% body fat is now at 10.1%. So those guys have worked really hard. The group has already changed their bodies dramatically. From our testing, from our off-season testing, Nick Scott came in with the highest, what we call our T-score on the team, which is a combination of the power clean, squat, bench press, vertical jump, 40-yard dash, and body weight. So you could make the argument Nick Scott's the best athlete that we have on our team from a testing perspective. So excited about that. Some player position changes you guys may have seen. Some of these happened probably right after print. So I want to make sure you had them all. Lamont Wade from quarterback to safety. I think most of you have that. Daylon Darien from wide receiver to linebacker. Damian Barber from defensive end to D tackle. And then Hunter Kelly is going to help us this spring by playing defensive tackle this spring. Our objectives as a team, obviously want to do a great job from an effort perspective. We should never have to coach effort, 100% effort in every play, every person in the program. Most competitive environment in all of college football. Real emphasis on offensive ball security and defensive ball disruption, which I thought was one of the better things we did last year and what I think was critical to our overall success. We want to be more disciplined in everything we do. In terms of class, in terms of sitting in the front row class, in terms of getting there on time, in terms of being there prepared, in terms of showing up prepared to study hall, in terms of alignment, assignment, all the discipline you show off the field translates to on the field. So we can spend less time babysitting players and really spend our time developing players, so that they leave here as educated men and prepared for life, and from a football perspective, obviously. We got to find it too deep at middle linebacker. I think that's a critical question going into the spring. Too deep that we can win with. We got to find it too deep at D tackle. We think we got a pretty good idea of what we got with Kevin Givens and Rob Windsor, but we got to find I'd say a 2.5 to 3 deep at defensive tackle. We got to figure that out. And then we got to figure out, about a field goal kicker and a kickoff guy. could be the same guy, could be separate guys. That's going to be something that, probably the most important things for us to figure out this spring. And then the last few points I got is we have our chalk talk, our coaches chalk talk. It's turned out to be a pretty big deal. Will be Friday and Saturday, April 6th and 7th. We got our blue-white game, which is Saturday, April 21st, 3 p.m. Admission is free. And then we got our We Are Women's Clinic. That's turned out to be one of the most popular events that we have every single year. That will be on Thursday, June 7th. We haven't even publicized it yet, and our number's already above where it was last year. So I could see that being sold out here pretty soon. So really appreciate you guys being here, excited about this spring and what we're going to be able to do. Coach Sider has really done a good job jumping in with 2 feet and getting caught up, and same thing with Coach Corley. And Tyler Bowen is, he's really kind of, he just took a sabbatical really for a semester and came back, so he kind of knows how we do things, and he has hit the ground running. And the other 2 guys have done a really good job getting caught up. And then Phil Galliano, obviously, as you guys know, had been with us for a year, so he's hit the ground running as well. So appreciate you guys being here, and open up the questions.
Raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you.
Hey James, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Great. Hey, how do you plan to manage the time of some of your veteran players? I know you lost a lot of guys, but guys like Trace, do you cut back on how much they may play in the spring compared to maybe previous years?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of 2 things. You really look at it is who still needs the work, who can you limit some of the reps, and then really what does it look like behind them? If you feel the number 2 and the number 3, their reps are more important, more critical, more significant than the returning starter, then you make those adjustments. So I think we look at that. I think as you guys saw, we limited some of the things that Saquon did last year. So we'll have a number of guys identified on offense, a number of guys identified on defense that we won't do any live work with. They've already kind of done enough of that. I think I think DeAndre Tompkins comes to mind, Juwan Johnson comes to mind, guys like that who've played a lot of football for us, and there's other guys. But I think we'll have a plan of guys that won't do any live, and then we'll have a list of guys that will do limited live, and then we got some guys that we got to figure out who they are, and they're going to get a bunch of reps. They're going to get a bunch of reps. So depth will factor into that, health will factor into that, experience will factor into all those decisions.
Derek?
James, what went all into the decision to move Lamont over to safety? What sort of skill set do you think he brings to that position, and how much of it is predicated on the depth you do have at corner to be able to make a move?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is, we feel really good about the depth that we have at corner and the guys that have played a lot of football for us. Amani and John Reed have played a lot of football. Everybody's talking about, you guys aren't, but a lot of the national people are talking about, well, we lost 4 secondary players and they're all at the combine and all those types of things. But those other guys in our secondary played a lot of, Nick Scott's played a lot of football for us. John Reed was a starter, multiple-year starter until he got his injury. Amani made second-team All-Big Ten. Those guys played a lot of football for us. So we feel really good about the depth that we have and are creating at the corner position. We have a little bit more question marks at safety. And Lamont's a football player. And although he's not the longest guy in terms of height, he's put together. He'll hit you. And we just felt like, they probably played to a little bit more of his strengths. So trying to create as much competition as we possibly can at linebacker, trying to create as much competition as we possibly can at safety, as much competition as we can at D-tackle. So we have as many different options to choose from and create a very competitive environment. So that's really how that whole thing played out.
Thank you, Frank.
Hey James, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. You mentioned on National Signing Day that Michael Parsons was going to start at like linebacker, and then you'd evaluate it. What are you looking for in that evaluation process, and what is that like for you to see he's settling into that position?
Well, I think when I said start, I think we all realized that he could play DN. He's established that on film. He's established that in camp. He's established that in some of the all-star games he went to. But we had a real pressing need at Mike linebacker, and we also have a guy that not only did he play DN, but played running back at a really high level. And a lot of times, those guys that are really good linebackers were really good high school running backs as well. So you're talking about a guy that has the body type, that has the speed, the strength, the quickness, playmaking ability, those types of things that we think he's got a chance. And really, since he showed up on campus, he's done a really good job. So it's obviously one thing to do morning workouts and another thing to what you do in the weight room and those types of things. But he's never played the position, so that's going to be a challenge, just from a fundamental and technique standpoint, and from a read standpoint. But then also the playbook, because the linebacker, now you have to take a little bit more command, you have to take a little bit more control, whether you're playing Mike or Will, our two box linebackers. So all those things kind of factor into it. But so far, so good. I remember during the recruiting process, there got to be a point where some of the players were like, "Coach, why are we putting up with this?" I don't see anybody saying that anymore. The morning workouts, they're watching them work. Now they see why. Committed, then decommitted, and committed back again. And I think at some point there was some coaches and players questioning if we ought to go on this roller coaster. I haven't had one person question the roller coaster since he showed up on campus. And I would also make this argument to you. He's really done a good job of, from a maturity standpoint and from an accountability standpoint, and from a teammate standpoint. Been very respectful of the older guys, and is working like crazy and competing like crazy. But it's been really good. But he's got a lot of guys in front of him. I know there's guys like Cooper, who's been waiting for this opportunity, and he's going to fight with everything he's got. And there's a number of guys like that they've been kind of waiting for their turn, with Jason Kabinda kind of holding down that position for a long time, and Brandon Smith, who I was with yesterday at the National Football Foundation luncheon. So we're just trying to create as much competition at that position as we can, so we can find the two deep that we think we can win with.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
To follow that up, is Jan Johnson still in the mix at Mike? And secondly, you talked a year ago optimistically about the offensive line and what it can do last season. What do you think it has to do to take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think Jan Johnson I'm glad you brought him up, is kind of like Cooper. They're two guys that have been in the program and have worked really hard and have earned a lot of respect, and it's time for them to take the next step and earn the starting job. But there's going to be there's going to be a lot of competition. There's no doubt about it. Across the board, and that's what we're trying to create. I think the O-line. I think we're in a situation probably for the first time since we've been here that I think last year, and maybe the end of the previous year, we got to the point where we had a scholarship too deep for the first time, and now we're what I would call legitimate too deep in terms of we've been in a situation a little bit like when Trace was the backup quarterback and he was in the too deep, but we were hoping to redshirt him, and we've been in that situation where we've had guys in the too deep that we were hoping to redshirt, or the backup was a redshirt freshman and he was there, but you weren't ready to really win with him. Where now I think we got a too deep that you can win with in the Big Ten. So instead of having 6 guys that you feel good about, that you're moving parts all over the place, you still may have a little bit of that, guys, to create some flexibility. But I think there's a too deep where you look across it and you say, the guy that's actually behind that position could go in and play in the game, and you got a chance to play play well enough to win in the Big Ten. So we're bigger, we're stronger, we're more experienced, we have more depth, we have more length. So I think Alex Gellerstedt's probably a really good example. He's a guy that came in here, had only played 1 year offensive line, was kind of a projection. And I'll tell you what, that guy has just worked and worked and worked and worked. And he never really, it's not like he has, an off season where he takes a major jump, but he just keeps taking steps, positive steps, positive steps, positive steps, with really no setbacks. And he's worked himself into a player. He really has. He's big, he's strong. You know, even just getting in his stance now, he never looked comfortable his whole freshman year in his stance. And now he's comfortable and he's athletic. And, I think he's kind of an example of what I'm talking about. He may have been listed on the depth chart the last couple of years, but I don't know if he was a viable option yet, and I think he is now. And I could say that kind of across the board. Michael Menet is a guy from your area that you usually ask about, and Michael's one of those guys. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm surprised that I didn't ask about it.
Yeah. Menet, you're always going to ask about Menet. You're always going to ask about Chan Johnson,
Well, I have to.
which makes sense. I get it. But Menet's another guy we knew was very talented. But doing it at the high school level and doing it here is different. And whether it was some bumps and bruises, or whether just understanding the intensity or whatever it was, it really seems like right now the light has really come on for him, and there's a lot of excitement about him right now. I think everybody always knew he could do it, but it was, each one of these guys have kind of got to figure out their own way of what it takes to be the type of player that they want to be and that we need them to be at this level. That's funny. I was talking this morning with a couple of coaches and a couple of players that, the hard part is when you compare and contrast. I think that's always kind of a tricky thing for all of us to do, is you compare yourself to somebody else and what they're doing and what their family's like, or what kind of car they're driving, or how much money they're making, and you're gonna cause yourself a lot of misery that way. And everybody's path is different. Saquon Barkley's path is different than Troy Apke's. But look where Troy Apke is now. And that's the hard part, is these guys understanding that you're going to have a little bit of patience, and you got to tune out all the noise, and you got to focus on the things that you can control. And I just truly believe if you just keep doing the right things day after day after day, at some point you're going to have a breakthrough. And when that breakthrough is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I do believe if you stay at it, you keep the right attitude, you keep working the right way, at some point it's going to break through for you. And that's what you see right now this time of year. You start seeing some guys taking that next step, or you see other guys struggling because the consistency. They're not able to consistently stick to the model and stick to the plan. So I think that's probably one of the more interesting things from my perspective as a head coach, is watching all these guys that you recruited in high school and you sat in their living rooms, and sometimes you're able to predict how their journey is going to go, and more times than not, you're not able to. But to me, that's the exciting part of coaching college football rather than the NFL, is watching these guys mature and grow.
Tyler?
Hey, Coach, I hope you're well. Back in December, you mentioned some comparisons between Aaron Rodgers and Miles Sanders and waiting for a legend to leave. Barkley is gone. How have you seen Miles Sanders step up, and how competitive is that running back group overall for reps?
Yeah, he's really, I know Coach Sider, it's sometimes as coaches, you're too close to it. So I think I always love the value of bringing in fresh eyes. I always ask, whenever we hire a new coach and they've been here for a couple months, I ask them to do a report of what they've seen, once they got here. What do they like? What do they don't like? What are they surprised by? How does it compare to the previous institution where they've been? Where are we better than they thought we were going to be? Where are we worse? And that's from a talent standpoint. That's from an organizational standpoint. That's from a facility standpoint. That's all those things. So I think there's a lot of value in fresh eyes. And we think we got a pretty good idea of what we have with Miles in the running back room, but maybe we're biased by this or biased by that. So someone new comes in, and it's interesting to hear their perspective. And he's been very impressed with Miles, and I think, back to your initial point, I think that's the correct model. I mean, you look at the model that the Packers were able to use when I was there, and you had Brett Favre, and you draft a quarterback in the first round, and you allow him to sit there and learn. I know it's probably not easy to go through, but I've seen the other model fail at a higher percentage rate. You draft a quarterback in the first round, you put them on the field, and they're not necessarily ready. And I think in college, that's what you really hope to do. You hope to have a veteran player that's a big time player, an all-conference, all-American type player with an exciting player maturing and growing behind him and learning, and then a guy behind him that you're excited about but just isn't ready yet. And we really haven't been at a position where we've had that since we've been here. I think we're getting to that point now, and I think that once this freshman class arrives, we'll have that at most positions. So to me, that's the right model. I mean, I can't imagine that there's a better player for Miles to come up under than Saquon Barkley. And you could make the argument maybe he could have went to some other schools and played as a true freshman, but I don't know if his development would have been to the point where it is now. I think being behind really good players and being able to study them and grow and be challenged by them is really important. No different than going to recruit the next guy to come in and push them from behind. So you got someone modeling in front and someone pushing from behind. I think is really important. Really important. So I feel great about the running back room as a whole. Mark Allen's a guy that's done some really good things with the opportunities that he's been given. Journey Brown's a kind of a young, exciting guy that's got a lot of ability and is a freakish athlete in a lot of ways from a testing perspective. So it should be interesting. And I think Jonathan Thomas is the guy that nobody ever really talks about. That wouldn't surprise me if he has like the Troy Apke deal, where as a senior comes in and plays really well. One of the more respected guys in our program. So excited about that position, especially behind the offensive line. And let's be honest, guys. To think we're going to be able to replace Saquon Barkley with a running back, that's not really what we need to do. We need to replace Saquon Barkley with the running backs that we have. And when I talk about replace Saquon, I'm talking about his production. But try to replace it with the group of running backs that we have, but also with the growth of the offensive line and the development of our tight ends, and still being a team that's difficult to stop because of the firepower that we have at wide receiver and the mobility we have at the quarterback position.
Audrey?
You led right into my question about the tight ends. What excites you about the group there that you have, and what do you want to see from those guys this spring?
Yeah, I think Mike Gesicki is kind of another example, kind of what we're talking about. I mean, really shouldn't have played Mike as a true freshman, but really kind of had to, and I think one of the things that's good is you got Bowers and you got Dalton, and you have Holland. You have all these guys that have been able to kind of marinate, in the fridge and grow and get stronger and kind of watch Mike's successes and learn from them, and. As a coach, that's the model that you'd prefer to have. So I think those guys are ready to kind of take the next step. Just like Mike, going into Mike's senior year, I had a lot of discussions about him, about Mike, the reason you come back for your senior year is to graduate, and the reason you come back in senior year is for a team to be successful. But the other reason you come back is to show that you can be more of a complete tight end. You're not going to improve your status by catches. Everybody's established. You've established that. So, being a more complete tight end, and he really worked hard at that. This offseason and this year, and I think that's what's nice about the tight ends that we've had. You're developing all those things from the time they stepped on campus. So, I'm excited about the group. We got to get everybody here. We got two guys coming in that are going to help to that group as well. We got to get everybody here. We got to get everybody healthy. We got to get everybody competing. But it's a talented group. But we've lost a lot of production. Between Saquon, and between Deshaun, and between Gesicki and Kabinda and the D tackles. And the secondary I haven't mentioned, but like I said, we got a lot of production coming back there as well.
Hey James, how's it going?
Good.
Good. You talked about the improvement of the offensive line. Is there a silver lining of sorts to not having Saquon from the standpoint of whoever you put back there is not going to command maybe the the same numbers attention that sometimes Saquon had in these games where they were just like, we're going to stop him and nobody else? Does that help them a little bit just by having someone maybe a little bit more human back there?
Yes, I think a couple of things. I think the fact that right now, I think in years past, you said we're not going to allow Saquon Barkley to beat us. I think now people are going to go into the approach where they say, we're not going to allow Trace McSorley to beat us. You try to identify a team's strength and you try to take it away. Now, don't get me wrong. 99.999% of defensive coordinators always start with the mentality and philosophy that they're going to stop the run and make you one-dimensional from that standpoint. But I also think you have to look at a team and say, who are the guys that can have the biggest impact in the game and try to limit their their impact on what happens. We do the same thing if we're playing the D tackle from the University of Washington. Well, our whole run game and pass protections need to be based on how do we make sure that we have a double team on him. No different if you have a defensive end that's leading the conference in sacks or whatever. You better factor that into your game plan and your schemes. So yeah, I think your point is exactly right. I think it's a combination of our experience and growth on the offensive line. I think it's not having Saquon Barkley in the backfield, although I think our running backs are going to surprise some people in what they're able to do. But I also think people concerned with DeAndre Tompkins, people concerned with Juwan Johnson, people concerned with Trace McSorley, as well. I think we're balanced. That's funny. I watched the Fiesta Bowl TV copy the other night. I hadn't watched that yet, so my wife records all those games, and I was working out this weekend and put it on and watched it. And it's just interesting some of the things that are said in the game that are not accurate. Now, I get it. You don't know, but like people say, well, like during that game, Tommy Stevens hadn't touched the ball as much in that game as he had, at the end of the season. When you're an RPO team like we are, we're reading it. So we're not just going to hand the ball off to Tommy Stevens on a sweep play when the defensive end or outside linebackers up the field to that side. Most of the stuff we do is reads. So I think for us, where we're difficult to deal with on offense is everybody always has had an approach offensively. You take what the defense gives. But for us, where each play has so many different options, it really magnifies that philosophy. So, so I think the combination of, I think we had a chance to be a little bit more balanced this year, although I think we've been pretty darn balanced the last couple of years. I think, we always went into it trying to get the ball into Saquon's hands a little bit more because he could change the game at any moment. And we'll still have a little bit of that, but I think it'll be a little bit more evenly distributed this year.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
James, what do you like that you see from your D tackles behind Rob and Kevin, and then what would you like to see most from them at the end of spring ball that they're working on?
Yeah, I think it's too early to say that. I think Windsor and Kevin were excited about what they're able to bring to the table, and then really kind of the guys after them. It's excitement based on potential, but they haven't played enough. When you graduate 3 D tackles and you had 2 D tackles coming back, you're typically only going to play about 5, maybe 6 guys at that position in the game. So, really the rest of those guys is all based on, kind of potential and excitement, athleticism. A guy that's probably closed the gap as much as anybody's Antonio Shelton. He's big, he's strong, he's smart. He's closed the gap. But there's a number of guys that we're excited about their potential and their ability. Ellison Jordan's the guy that's probably played the most football besides those returning starters. He's probably the guy that jumps out. Fred is another guy who's a big body, athletic guy, but hasn't gotten a whole lot of reps to see what he can do. Damian Barber's a big athletic guy that we're excited about what he can do. And then there's really kind of a lot of questions, but it's kind of probably too early for me to say that because you know, those positions, the O-line's different because we've seen a lot of those guys play now. And the D-line, it's hard to really determine it because we haven't really seen them play. Most of the stuff they're doing is in shirts and T-shirts, and that's not really how that position goes. So still too early for me to say at this point. Promising excitement based on potential, but haven't really seen enough to know.
John?
Hey James, how you doing?
Good, are you?
Good. You mentioned that obviously Micah has never played Mike, and Jason Cabinda always said that it was nice for him to have in his development, you know, guys like Mike Hall and Naeem around. What's the dynamic like in the linebacker room in regards to Micah with that, and does it make Brent's job harder?
Yes, I think, you know, kind of just got them talking about the quarterback position with Aaron Rodgers and so on and so forth. You know, it's not ideal. You'd love to have, you know, the young guys being able to come in and sit behind some, you know, veteran players, but, you know, that's where Coop is important. That's where Jan's important. You know, you'd love for those guys to you know, have a chance to earn a significant role, whether it's starter or a significant role, so you have time to develop some of those younger guys. I think Brandon Smith's a great example. I mean, you know, we didn't really have him factored in early in his career. Brandon Smith ended up playing great football for us, you know, for a year and a half, 2 years. So I wish we had him for one more year. I wish he was staggered a little bit, to be honest with you. But no, it's not ideal. But that's where the numbers are important. You know, if we have enough guys at those positions, you know, it gives you a better chance to find some. And yeah, it's definitely going to make Brent's job more challenging. But you know, I'm excited about the people that we have there. Jarvis Miller's a guy that we haven't talked about. Pretty excited about Jarvis. You know, I think he ran 4.4 in testing. Strong, competitive. Daylon Darien ran better than, you know, he's run since he's been here, and bigger and stronger. So we got some really good body types and options to work with. We just got to find the guys. Cam Brown, we think he's ready to take the next step. Cole Farmer, I think he's ready to take the next step. You know, so we got some guys in there that we're excited about. Tar Burton's a big, strong, physical guy who's gotten leaner. You know, same thing with Jesse Luqueta. You know, big, strong guys that have gotten leaner. I think sometimes in high school they're so worried about getting big for big's sake and not necessarily the right type of weight. That's where the body fat percentages that I went over with you guys before are so important.
Yeah.
Hey James, wondering about the combine performance. Is that something that you guys use in recruiting? And also your spring clinic, what's it mean to you and to have Bill O'Brien coming back?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, yeah, I think the combine, very proud of those guys. You know, those guys, for the most part, really, you know, since I've been a head coach, we're pretty confident in what our testing numbers are going to be. You know, pretty consistently, what we say our guys run, they run at the combine. What we tell the NFL scouts and what they bench and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, when you have guys go to the combine and kill it the way our guys did, it's created a buzz about, you know, our development, which is something I think you guys know we take a lot of pride in. You know, to me, the crazy part is Christian Campbell didn't even test, and I think Christian would have been another guy that would have blew the combine away. I actually think, I don't want Saquon to take this the wrong way, I think Saquon had a very average combine, and he finished #1 across the boards. I know his start wasn't what he wanted it to be. I was very confident that Saquon was going to run a low 4.3, and I thought with training, you never know, he may run a high 4.2. That sounds crazy. I've seen him bench press 225 34 times before, so his numbers were solid, but it wasn't like, not like, you know, I think he even thought he would do a little bit better. But with that, our guys killed it. Our guys killed the combine. So I'm excited. We got pro day tomorrow. I think that'll be important for us. The clinic, yeah, I think the clinic is great. I'm glad you brought up the Billy O'Brien thing. I was going to ask Mike. You know, we haven't even announced that yet, so I'm curious in how you know and Mike knew that, you know, Billy was coming to do our clinic because we hadn't announced it yet. So Mike, Was that question for Mike about how he found out about Billy O'Brien? Yeah, I know you did a story, that's what I'm saying. So you want to reveal your sources?
A good reporter never reveals them.
Yeah, that's what I figured you were going to say. So thanks, Mike. Thanks for releasing that. So yeah, Billy's coming and doing our clinic.
Mark?
James, where's Carson Landis now in his development as a kicker after a year? And what do you need to see him, or what would you like to see from him this spring to give him a chance going into the fall?
Yeah, he's got an unbelievable opportunity. We don't have a whole lot of guys on campus. I think you guys saw our approach, the recruiting process at that position. So he's got a great opportunity. He's going to get a bunch of reps, in this camp. He's got a strong leg. I think the biggest thing, for high school players trying to transition into the Big Ten and football at this level is the consistency aspect. He shows flashes of being really good. So this spring is going to be important for him to show the consistency aspect. The consistency really in the accuracy, the consistency in him hitting the sweet spot so he can drive the ball as far and as strong as he wants to. But for the most part, it's consistency in location and field goals, and it's consistency in location and kickoffs, because as you guys know, we're a big directional punt and directional kick team. I don't believe in kicking the ball to the best athlete on the field in the middle of the field and give them 53 1/3 to work with. We want to pin people in certain portions of the field. So he's got a tremendous opportunity. We're excited about, and he's going to get every opportunity that we have to show that he can do it. We also know that Blake Gillikin kicked in high school and was a high-level kicker in high school, but I do think whenever you can have guys specialize, the punter, the kicker, and maybe even the punter, kickoff guy, and field goal guy, I think it helps with young players that are still developing confidence and a routine.
Time for one more.
James, what's the wide receiver room dynamic been like since Coach Gaddis left? And then specifically, how much competition does Brandon have to take Deshaun Shaw, whether it be from KJ or someone else?
Yeah, Brandon Polk's a guy who's played football here, shown some really good flashes over the years, and had some health things that he's had to work through and those types of things. But he's the guy. He's listed right now. As a starter, there's going to be tremendous competition with him as well. But he's going to be the guy that goes out with the first group in the first practice. But he's a guy that can run. He's a guy that's got natural ball skills. He's a little bit undersized, obviously, but he's gotten stronger. He's obviously got great chemistry with Trace, because him and Trace played together in high school. So he's a guy that we're really excited about, but looking for him to make a move because of the other players that he's going to be competing with that we currently have in the room, and then also the group that's coming in. So be great competition at that position. But I think we feel really good about when you think about Juwan Johnson. And you think about DeAndre Tompkins, and you think about Polk, who played a lot of football for us, and then you have that that other group, the Hip and Hammers and KJ Hamlers, and so on and so forth. It's a bunch of guys that I could mess. Yeah, those guys haven't gotten here, so just guys that are currently in the program. But there's a bunch of them, and then you never know the Shoops and Hohensteins and those guys. So one of those guys may emerge as a guy for you. Lutz may emerge as a guy for you as well. So we'll see. But I think Polk's got an unbelievable opportunity, no different than you probably talked about with Landis, to really make a move this spring and kind of take a hold of one of those positions.